Welcome back to Panhandle Pulse. Today I got a great guest in Chris Smith. He's the chief meteorologist and founder of panhandleweather.com. If you live in the area, I'm sure you've seen him on the Northwest Florida local channels reporting on the weather and everything exciting going on in the area. So, Chris, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, it's great. I like your background there with the weather forecast. Tell us a little bit of how you got started and got you excited into becoming a meteorologist.
Man, I knew when I was in third grade, I wanted to be a meteorologist. I grew up in northwestern Pennsylvania till I was 12 and just was fascinated by the weather. Up there, we had a lot of lake effect snow. So, as a kid, like, why is it snow? When is it going to snow? Stuff like that. And then we had a big tornado outbreak back in 1985 up there with big tornadoes that were, obviously very rare up and down mountains, across rivers. And so I think that just kind of cemented this interest in weather that I carried with me until it was time to go to college. And I was like, well, what do I want to do? And I was like, well, I really like this weather thing. Like, I can remember, like, we didn't have cable at my house. And I'd go to, like, spend the night parties, and I'd be at, like, a friend's house that had, like, cable, and I'd be like, can I watch the Weather Channel for a little bit? So I just kind of carried it with me, and it just kind of was fortuitous that I was always kind of a math science person. And so it worked out that meteorology is like an engineering degree. And so I was pretty good in the math and science stuff. And I was like, well, let's go ahead and go to college and do that. And so by that point, we had lived in Georgia, and Florida State was the closest school that had a meteorology program for undergraduates. And so that's how I ended up there. Didn't know I wanted to do TV. I think a lot of people, like, that's all you think about. Like, when you think of weather, you think of, like, oh yeah, the TV weatherman. There's actually a lot of different jobs that you could do with meteorology, but television was, always kind of front of mind. And it turned out that I was able to get good enough by the time I graduated for somebody to give me my first job. And here we are 30 years later. I've been doing this.
Wow, that's impressive. So you didn't trust Puxatony Phil up there as your weatherman up there?
You know what? I need to go see that and take it in, because, like, I grew up not very far from it, Punxsutawney, and so obviously the movie's a classic. But I need to go up there and actually experience the whole thing. But yeah, I'll even though people joke about us being right half of the time, I think that's a lot better than Phil.
Yeah, yeah, definitely better than Phil. I always thought it's funny. My son was like, "There's people you can't trust. You just don't trust the weatherman because it'd be sunny today and raining tomorrow."
But that's, like, one of the fun things about it, is that I do think that for the most part, we get it right a lot more than we ever get it wrong. But a lot of it too is, like, with television, is how do you communicate with people as to what's going on with the weather? Because really you're painting a picture of the weather. And, like, there were plenty of people in meteorology, and, I'm sure, like, in your field of work with, growing up, like, there are lots of brilliant people in there in meteorology, but, like, not many had the ability to talk to other people about weather. And so I like to say that I was smart enough to get my degree, but I kind of knew that that was, like, the end of the road. I wasn't going on to do computer modeling and stuff like that. I was more of a communicator, and I had enough of a skill set and enough knowledge to do broadcasting. And so, I look at it a lot of times is like, it's not the forecast is wrong, it's how you paint the picture wasn't right. And for people to understand what it is, because, the numbers are all great to get hung up on, but I think the average person wants to know, is it going to rain? Or, the other week, when temperatures fell throughout the day, it was like 53 in Destin, and it was 70 something in Panama City. But within 2 hours, that 53 was in Panama City, and it was during the day. And so, like, when I talked about the weather that day, it was all about nothing to do with what the high was. That day, that was immaterial, but it was the fact that, like, it was going to be a lot colder by the afternoon hours. And so, I think that is where it gets a little bit, that's what your job is to kind of paint that picture so someone's prepared, because they'll remember that.
Right.
But, like, yeah, sure, the high was 72, but if the high was 72 at 9 a.m., like, what good does that do you?
Yeah, yeah, right. I don't know if I learned this just a few months ago when I started getting into more boating and going offshores. Is when you look at your app for your weather information, when it says a 20%, 30% chance of rain, it's for a particular area. That doesn't mean it's 20% for the whole county or 30% for the whole thing. You have to bring in some radar effects into that.
Yeah, it has to do with your confidence in the forecast. It's actually like a calculated. The rainfall chance is calculated, and it has to do with the chances of seeing rainfall. So, like if you duplicate it over like 10 days, if you say a 20% chance, it means at that one point there's a chance that you could get, one hundredth of an inch of rain at that one point on 2 out of 10 of those days. It doesn't have anything really to do with the amount of rainfall, which, I mean, if it spits on you a little bit and it's not worthy of bringing out the umbrella, what good does that do if, you get that or versus that, oh, well, yeah, we happen to have one of those 2 of 10 days, but we got an inch of rain. That's much more impactful. And again, that goes more into explaining what it's going to be versus not. And that was kind of like part of what we want to do with this is, especially being in a tourism focused area, is we want to kind of embrace people that don't live here as well, that come here on vacation and they go to their iPhone app in the summertime and like every day has a thunderstorm symbol. Now, you and I know that it's not going to rain all day, and like this summer, we saw that a lot, but I think we had like 3 bad days like all summer where like rained all like where it was like, not a pretty beach day.
Right.
But, like, think about, like, the harm that does to people's perceptions coming on vacation or maybe making a choice not to come, And so I think there's an opportunity for us to reach because this channel that we're running, you can access it anywhere. You don't have to be, you don't have to be on a TV channel, for it. You can watch us on the app in Birmingham, Nashville, Atlanta. You can watch us on YouTube. We can stream to Facebook and everything. So there's a lot of different ways that, we're not confined to what they call like a DMA. So I think that's going to be part of this is talking to people that aren't from here leading up to their vacation and for their vacation. And again, it's about painting the picture. When you see that thunderstorm icon there every day, that's all fine because yes, there's a chance just about every day. When you paint that picture of what it really is going to be like, and that is like of your 7 days, 6 out of 7 or 7 out of 7, or probably you're going to look back and be like, yeah, it was a pretty good day.
Yeah, yeah, you only had a part of the rain during the day, and you're doing that now, creating all that through the Panhandle Weather .com that you guys created, so anyone can look at that and see the weather beforehand and not cancel your trip before you come down if it says it's gonna rain 7 days in advance.
Exactly. But that's the beauty of this and, why we decided to create this is because I'm 52 and I no longer saw broadcasting getting me to retirement. Things are changing so fast. And if anything we learned when we got our iPhones and like, hey, look, you can watch funny videos on it was that like anybody can broadcast. Now, certain people can broadcast better than others, more professionally or whatever. But the point is, anyone can produce their own content. And so we kind of came up with this idea, and there were a few other people that were in front of us doing this. And so we kind of use them as a roadmap is to create our own weather channel. And, when I say that broadcast, like, wasn't going to get me to retirement, I think local news will exist in a form moving forward. But like, is it going to be a way for me to make enough money to support my family? Is it going to give me, like schedule flexibility? Because like that's the thing in broadcast is like, in my 16 years at the local station, I had one duty that was removed and I had about 400 duties that were added on,
Yeah.
and, so like the one duty that I didn't have to do anymore that went away was I used to have a phone line that I had to call and update the forecast every day. So, there were a bazillion other things that we had to start doing. Oh, you have to do app videos, you have to do the website, you have to do this, that, and it was all this stuff as they try and kind of stay relevant. And then the next thing is like, oh, we have to do digital. Well, it becomes difficult, like to do anything good when it's not your primary job. There are people out there that will do digital. Like, there are professional people that podcast. That so like if it's my at the TV station, they're like, oh yeah, go out and do a podcast. Well, if that's like my 10th duty of the day, guess what? My effort and passion for that is not going to be nearly as and I'm not going to be as good at it as Joe, who is producing his own podcast, and that's his passion and that's all he does. He doesn't have like all the other noise around him. And so we kind of came up with this thing to create our own weather channel focused on us, and I feel that so much of news anymore is so politicized, and there's
Yeah.
so much negative news that like people, like the most watched part of the news is the weather. And we're like, well, why don't we just take our toys and go do our own thing, and we'll just do the weather? And so if you care about the weather, then you're going to want to watch us. And if you want to watch the news, that's completely your prerogative. It's completely fine. But like also too, like we can go off and do weather, and then you could go watch whatever flavor you want, whether it's, red or blue or purple or, whatever the case may be. We like to say that we're in a political free zone. We're just talking the weather, and that was the most valuable part of the news. And we're just going to do weather all the time. And that means also, too, we are going to own the weather because that's our job. We don't have all the other stuff that's going on that you have in broadcasting. And so, we haven't had, since we launched October 1st, we haven't had a ton of severe weather, but we've had like 3, 4 events, and we've crushed the TV stations because it's our focus. My studio is in my house. And like my bedroom is like 20 feet that way. So I can be out of bed and on air in under 10 minutes.
Yeah. And you don't
Flip a
have to
couple,
do those $500 tasks that you were assigned elsewhere.
100%. Because like what we found is we do a show every day at 6 called Panhandle Weather. And it's a live show. Most of what we have on the channel is taped content. We update it several times a day, but we also have the ability with literally the push of a button to go live. And we just kind of find that when the weather is more important, we are going to own it. But when the weather's quiet, we recognize that it's not going to be as much of interest to people. And so we shouldn't necessarily have like all these shows that we continue to do when people aren't necessarily going to watch because like, hey, it's October and it hasn't rained for a month. Like, and it's 70s and 80s every day. Like, you're not as concerned. Like, your phone app, including our app, is probably going to be good enough, as far as like, oh, it's a temperature forecast. Oh, it's definitely not going to rain. Okay, that's fine. You want us when there's things of interest going on. And that's kind of what we focus on and what our specialty is. And so, like, man, I lost track of the numbers, but like we had done like with the different severe weather events, I think we had done like over 12 hours of live coverage of the weather streaming. And I think the TV stations locally combined for an hour, the two stations, so like they're just not, because they have so many other things going on, they don't get to focus on when weather's active. Like, and it doesn't take severe weather for people to be concerned about the weather, because the average person doesn't know that a severe thunderstorm, you have to have 58-mile-an-hour winds, and you have to have 1-inch hail, or you have to have a tornado. If the wind is 50 miles an hour, you can't tell the difference.
Right.
You know what I mean? To me, or to you at home, that's severe. You're like, what the heck's going on? Well, like, when I was in broadcasting, you'd be sitting there and you'd be like getting ready for the news. And you're like, oh man, I would like to go talk about that, but I have to get ready for the 4 o'clock news or the 5 o'clock news. And so it's kind of like things that weren't as important were dictating, what you covered. And now with limiting that, I just hit a button and we can go talk about strong, but not necessarily severe storms. And I think that's kind of the beauty of what we're doing. And it's weather was like it's the most important, but it was also like one of the more expensive things to attach your name to at the TV station. Like if you wanted your name on the radar or you wanted your name on the 7-day, those are all high interest things. And now we're going to take that and again just live in our own little weather world here covering the Panhandle.
Yeah, and I think that's great. And I think social media and technology has changed that where this is the new wave of how we're going to get our information because, like you said, you're getting a 5 minute, maybe a 2 minute spot on the local news or the weather, and then you're off to other things. So some people, if you miss that, you got to wait the next 30 minutes, but you don't have 3 minutes to get out the door.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah. When the auroras were visible back in like November, and we started like getting pictures and saying, "Holy crap! Like there they are! Like we can see them!" Like we just went ahead and went live and shared people's pictures and explained what was going on, and it was cool to have that flexibility just to hit a button and start talking to, the world. But that was of something that was of interest that was happening right then. And we had that flexibility because the studio is at my house and because I own the channel, or me and my business partner, we own the channel. Like we can make those decisions. Like, let's just go ahead and break in. I don't have to ask a boss's permission because we have commercials or we have a football game on. And, there's all these limitations that you deal with. And so we're just, going to live here in our little weather world. And, my goal is to be more present with my family. And that was part of it. Like, I worked essentially 2 to midnight, and so I saw the kids for like 20 minutes in the morning and then like no sports, no nothing in the evening, and it's just like, why am I doing this?
yeah,
If I don't see it getting me to retirement, I haven't had a raise in like 12 years. Like, why? Why am I,
right.
other than I love weather, you know what I mean? But I mean, at some point, like, why is my wife having to be a single mom essentially, because I'm out living my dream being a weatherman? I mean, I'd done it for 30 years and I reached the point of like, you know what? I don't have to do it. I can do a job, because most people don't get to do what they love for a year, and I got to do it for 30.
Yeah. And I think now with tech today, and I think that's another point for you to elaborate more on is like, now you have access to do that from your own studio. 10 years ago, you may not have had the technology to be able to do that and go out and do it on your own versus you have access to the same weather data that the high end TV stations have and the weather stations. You can pull in that same data and be able to create what you want as a business and fit into your schedule, which is highly important to listeners in the area that you don't have to go get the 9 to 5 job. You can create your own.
Yeah, and like your life, I'm sure, is a lot less scheduled than it used to be, and so why again live in these 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, these little windows, expect people to kind of conform to you when you can do a little bit more conforming to them. And you're right about the technology. I mean, like I have like the set that you see behind me, and I can show you guys in a minute, like if you want, like what it actually looks like. But like it was designed by the same people that designed the set at my old TV station. So it's like it's a real set. The weather graphics are the same weather graphics provider as Channel 13 has in town. Like so like we're not like using PowerPoint and like trying to get by. I mean, it's the reality is like our overhead though is a fraction because I don't have the people, I don't have I don't have transmitters. I don't have engineers. Now, part of that is that's all of our jobs now too, me and my business partner. But like our overhead is also a lot less, and we can provide, I think, a superior product with just two of us right now, knowing that we're not going to stay at two. We will expand and we may have to move this out of my garage, but we'll get to that. But in the meantime, it allows us to have overhead that's significantly less so we can kind of sock that money away into those things like, because I've never run a business before. I'm still learning QuickBooks. And, like what parts of this job as an entrepreneur, what parts suck?
Yeah.
Like what do I not want to do? Because I'm a weatherman. Like, and the station to a certain extent is built around me and Dan, and especially me because I was here for so long, so people know who I am. So I have to be present on air. I can't just disappear and go off and do a lot of these other tasks. And right now, most days are like 10, 12-hour days as we kind of ramp things up. But I also know I can't maintain that pace, forever. And that we'll have to take money and put it at different things, whether it's some kind of manager or general sales manager, or whether it's a bookkeeper and whatever it is, we'll figure out like, the best use of that money? And then also like a studio, and do we have plans that we can do this, run multiple channels at the same time? And how does that work? And, obviously, like the HOA might not appreciate that if I'm running this out of my garage with all these people. So, we'll have to use that money to eventually get like an actual like studio and do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, or you can have each meteorologist that you hire have their own studio in their own garage in their own house, and they don't have to go anywhere either. So you have these portable studios each place.
100%, because like my business partner, Dan, he lives in Springfield, which is on the other side of Panama City. And so he's like an hour away from my house. I live in South Walton. And so it's, he comes out here a decent amount, but he doesn't have to. And like that's all part of this process too, is to create maybe not something as grandiose as what's in my garage, but at least a version of it. So that way he can do more weather from home and not have to drive out here all the time. Because yeah, like that's the neat thing about this is like there are people that are doing this in other places. Like there's a guy in Northern California that does this, but his weekend person actually does this at a job in Northern Tennessee or Southern Tennessee. And so he's doing the weather for him out there. Now, I think, and that's just to give him a break because he's a single person shop. So that's how he gets his break on the weekend. I'm lucky in that I have a business partner that also does weather that we can kind of do a little bit of that as well. But you don't technically have to be someplace, but I think it's important because you're a part of the community. People see you out there, but also there's a lot of knowledge that comes from living in a place and forecasting and stuff like that. But you're right that technically you don't have to, and I think that's what you'll see at the TV stations, and they're already doing it, is like when they're short staffed or like they're having trouble hiring people and stuff like that, they'll start hubbing it out to like Dallas and, where their corporate offices are, they'll have like basically like fill in weather people that will tape segments for the news. And I think, you're going to see more and more of that, but I think in the end, what will probably happen with this is like, if we want to, we'll end up doing the weather for one of the TV stations locally, just for them to be able to save money. And, they're not going to be able to beat us.
Right.
So like, I think that's going to be like this, what ends up happening now, how long that takes, I think between 2 and 5 years probably. And, and we'll see. And maybe I won't even want to do that. Maybe I'll just be like, I'm just going to continue to do this because like the whole point of this was like to not have a schedule, you
Right.
know,
Gives you the
but
flexibility.
if we can grow enough, then, maybe that's not me that's having to work 2 to midnight. I'll have a different shift and different responsibilities. So we'll see how it goes. But, we're kind of reading, reacting, which is a lot of fun. And we think about it a lot. But, in 2 months, I mean, man, like we have like I've like my page has been around for a while, but like our Panhandle Weather Facebook page is like over 16,000 followers in like 2 months and change. Like our YouTube page, we're well over 2,000 subscribers there in just 2 months. The app that we have, our Panhandle Weather app, that we're over coming up on like 11,000 downloads in 2 months, which, I'm really excited about. And like, it's very flattering that people take the time and download something that you're a part of and you created. I'm really excited about it. And I think a lot of people are excited too that, and they also see like a little bit like of me and them in their lives from the standpoint of this whole issue with like being a better dad and a better husband and being present. And, you all got to do what you got to do to put food on the table and stuff. But like, I think a lot of us are always looking for ways out to be able to not have to have your cake and eat it too, if you will.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. To be spend more time with your family, to do what you want to do, and not in the realm of society where we are. We have to work 2, 3 jobs just to be able to afford the standard of living in today's age. So,
Yeah.
that's impressive that you guys have all those numbers and stats just in 2 months, and I think it's going to grow tremendously since you're focusing right here on the Northwest Florida part because everyone's looking for weather, not just 5 minutes a day from the news channels.
Yeah, and that's kind of the goal is like when the weather's bad, we're gonna wear it, as we like to say. Like we're not gonna sleep a whole lot and we'll have to work really, really hard. But I think like there'll be an opportunity once we get like a bed of advertisers and income coming in where we're not like at first we built the channel, now we're focusing on sales. And once we get enough sales, like, I mean, you'll always be selling, but there will be a certain amount of as people drop off, you add more that we'll be able to kind of um, have quieter days when it comes to days that it's 70 and sunny and it doesn't rain in October. Like, we'll be able to, like, hey, that'll be a pretty chill month. For us, and we won't have to work as hard. So that way, when it hits the fan, then, it's like, well, okay, time to play.
Yeah, we're going to edit that part out. It's sort of a secret. October is not good weather days to come down in Northwest Florida.
I know. It's funny, like you think about like because we've thought a lot about this tourism aspect and we don't know like how we're going to do this. Do we do it with a separate channel? Or can we do it within the Panhandle Weather brand? Like, because we've thought about like, oh, we could do like 30A focused weather or South Walton focused weather. And like that brings in like advertising from tourism related businesses. And because like if you have multiple channels, we can kind of spread out, because I have 24 hours of content to fill, that's going to make it a lot more affordable. And so, like, if you focus on tourism for the channel and not necessarily like for Chipley, Bonifay, Defuniak, where all like the regular people that live here, those are your average viewers. Your average viewer is not necessarily coming to the beach. But I think there is an opportunity for us to tap into that and get advertising from like all the different tourist spots and restaurants and things like that and operate these channels because I think the beach is a special place. And most people that come here on vacation, they think about like their 1 week or 2 weeks a year that they come to the beach, and I miss the beach and like I want to watch the sunset. Well, guess what? They can watch the sunset on our website, or on our channel. And so I think there's opportunities there and we'll see where it goes. If we can crack that nut under the Panhandle Weather brand, or does it mean that we do PCB weather, South Walton weather, Destin weather, whatever, Emerald Coast weather. I own a lot of domains
Yeah.
for stuff. And, it's because we didn't want to like, we weren't sure where it was going to go. And we still don't know, but we're working on it. We're starting with Panhandle Weather, and that's for all of us that live here in Northwest Florida.
Yeah, and maybe branch it off into sub channels underneath your same Panhandle Weather, so you have it all, and then people can just focus on the areas they want with inside that same channel.
That's what we're thinking.
Now you need to add, on my personal request, some kind of boating weather information inside there. If you can figure out to tell us waves 20 miles offshore versus what we get to now, would be millions of downloads by the end of the week.
So boating is one of our huge priorities as far as like, how do we crack that nut? And obviously we haven't gotten here yet because it's an underserved thing. And that's like part of what Panhandle Weather is about. Like we have an ag segment on our channel. We have a beaches and boating segment. Now, I'm not an expert in boating. I'm not an expert in ag. So we have to work on providing as much relevant information for those people as possible. But I have a friend of mine that's a big fisherman that was a meteorologist for a long, long time in television that lives down here. And we're going to lean on him to help us create a more useful means of getting the weather information you want for boating. Because I know that like the NOAA forecasts like aren't always like the best. And you go out there for 1 to 2 and it's 2 to 3 and that's a big difference, or 3 to 4, and so we realize that it's an underserved population and it's very important, but we have to figure out what information can we provide and how can we provide that information better, and so I think we're going to lean on my friend Dave to help us with that because he knows a lot more and kind of take that segment of our channel, and whether that's like a segment where he goes and talks to captains, because so many people have Starlink on their boats now. And I think we would find willing charter captains in particular to maybe talk to us while they're out there for a minute about what they're seeing 30 miles offshore, 60 miles offshore. So we could kind of get some real time information. And then they would, also be able to get like that captain's out there. That's Captain so-and-so. And, maybe get some more charters out of it. It's like, right now we're very basic with everything as far as like the information that we're providing, but we know like where we want to go with it and how we want to try and serve, especially that boating thing, because like it's very important, not only to people here on vacation, but a lot of us live here because we love fishing and boating and stuff like that. And it's not where it needs to be right now. But the good thing is for us, I have 24 hours of time that I can dedicate to different things. And so,
Right.
whether it's agriculture or boating, those might not be like the biggest populations of people, especially agriculture, but those people, they care about it and it's important to them. And there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to provide like high quality information for them.
Yeah, I think especially for that. I mean, that whole environment is way underserved for agriculture around here. There's no, I mean, you can even the general TV stations are just saying the general area of weather is this, and to plan your day for farming around the area is extremely difficult.
Yeah, we have like soil temperature data, soil moisture. We have a lot of other different types of information that we put out on the channel because of it. Precipitation, how much above or below average are we? Rainfall forecasts, a lot of that kind of stuff. But I know there's more that they want, and so we want to find those people and then figure out how can we get what data that they want and make that a part of the channel. And so then it becomes more of a community, and that's how we kind of want to look at it with our advertisers as well, is that, people have been super gracious with their time and money supporting us so far. And we want to continue to grow that. Like they're a part of our weather family. And that's something that traditionally, like in news, that you don't get. Like it's kind of like news is separate and the ads run outside of the news segments. But I think we have an opportunity because we're not really doing news, we're just talking weather, to kind of bring in some of our advertisers a little more closely and make it part of a community that maybe people will be more likely to support them because they're supporting us.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think the, everyone on here is going to be listening to this is going to be tremendously excited that you're just focusing on the area and focusing on weather, not everything else above that. So it actually gives a
I'm much happier, I'll tell you now, than I was in news. Like, even though I wasn't in news, like you're still subjected to it all the time. And like I've noticed, like I'm a lot happier just staying a little blissfully unaware of what's going on in the world around me. And the crazy thing is life seems to be continuing to move along, like however it is, good, bad, or indifferent. But like at the news, it's it was very frustrating with the news aspect and coverage. I was like, you know what, we're just like, let's just get out of this. We're not going to bother with news. And we like to say that whether you're red, blue, or purple, we'll have you, because I mean we're just talking about the weather.
right. And that red, blue, and purple reference also goes to your radar screen codes when you look at your apps as well, right? In the background, they all.
Exactly. Here, I can show you guys a little bit of what we do. So this is the studio, and this is an 86-inch touchscreen. And so we can manipulate everything on here.
Nice.
We could say like, oh, let's pull up temperatures. And then we could say like, what are all the temperatures outside? 56, whatever it may be. We have lightning data. We can draw on the maps.
You can do everything but make it warmer here this week, right?
Yeah, exactly. So like, there's so much stuff that we can do. We can, look at the let's see, let's go Destin. We can pull up cameras from the touchscreen, but it enables us to just kind of do a whole interactive thing. And then we also have the traditional green screen.
Green screen.
And you can see here, there's a monitor right there.
Okay,
And
so
that's
the
how
green
you,
screen shows you what you would be projecting back out in the camera.
yep. And let's see, we will, and then if you look down there, there's another one. So you can see yourself right there. And if you look out here, there's our camera. There's the beer fridge in the garage.
There you go.
There's bikes and everything, my kids' stuff. It's still a little bit of a mess. We got a little cleaning up to do, but the point being is like, it's here and it all works. And there's all of the different computers. This computer here, let's see.
So you're like everyone else in Florida. You don't use your garage for parking the cars in them.
Yeah. You know what? It's funny. I had my car in here until I did this, and like the thing is, we built this house like a year and a half ago, and if I had known like I was going to do this, like I probably would have done things a little differently. But it is what it is. We're blessed to have enough space to make it work, and like, to have like something like this. Like you can see, there's the mini split up there for keeping us a little more comfortable in here. You'll see, let's see. Oops, sorry about that. Let's see. So you see, like, this is our weather computer here, and we can do all of our graphics. We build everything there. This is what's running on the channel right now. And this is like the rundown of like everything, and it's funny because like, I don't know if, do you use OBS? So like, there's parts of this that are like, like a $50,000 weather computer. And then there's other things that are like OBS, which is like freeware, and then like the rundown software is, like that stuff there. That was like, thousands and thousands of dollars to get something like that to be able to do like our weather wheel. Emix is not too bad, but it wasn't 100% cheap. So it's fun. We laugh about it a lot of times that like the channel is like, there's some things that are just really expensive and everything. And then like other things are like, some freeware that comes off of like GitHub that
Yeah.
is, from Dankmaster 48 that is a critical piece to what we do, but it happens to be like just like this little piece of software that somebody wrote.
Right. And not only you're using that, other stations are using the same thing. They're using pieces of outsource if they don't want to pay for the full versions of it. And sometimes that data is even better, especially if you're getting
Yeah.
it from community developers.
Yeah, and we're lucky. We're part of something called the National Weather Network, and and you go nationalweathernetwork.com, and you'll see there's, like 12 to 15 of us around the country that are part of this network that are kind of doing the same thing. We all do it to varying degrees. Some people do what we call Twitch weather, which is like, they just have like a box on one side and then graphics on the other, and they're just sitting in a chair like we were just talking a little bit ago. And then there's like people like us that have like a full setup with like touch screen and green screen and all that kind of stuff. So there's not like rules about like what you have to look like, but like we're all dealing with like the same stuff, and most of us have had like the same issues at some point. So it's good because we get to kind of lean on one another. And then like I think the hope is at some point that when you pool all of our resources, like individually, Coke is not going to come advertise with Panhandle Weather. Like they're like, what is that? But like if we get enough of these channels in enough places, then at that point we might have enough for national brands like Home Depot or whoever that might want to advertise with us. And so we're more of like a co-op of people. Like it's literally like a text group right now that like operates of just like, hey guys, this is what's working for us, from stuff that you post on social media. Like, oh, I had good luck with like this look to something because, I don't know how much you get into social media, but like, what causes something to go viral versus not? And like, we're all like trying to figure this out to have the most success and to get the most eyeballs for us, also for our advertisers.
Yeah, definitely. I don't have the social media figured out yet. So if I figure that out, I'll let you know, but still working on that.
I tell you what, it's really like I don't use it personally, like, but I mean, it is important. Like, it's a big part of like us having any kind of success. Like, because when I left the TV station in June, like if I didn't have social media, people wouldn't have not known like what happened to me. And then, you know, like we popped up in October, but like I was able to at least bridge that with information and updating people. So that way, I have whatever 61,000 followers. That's like a bunch of people at least to at least know that we exist. And hopefully they'll give us an opportunity to, or give us a chance, to consume what we're we're doing. So, I can't rail on social media too much because I feel like it wouldn't have been possible without it because, I don't have to advertise to the extent that I maybe would have otherwise.
Right. The launch of this may have been a little bit harder if you didn't have that following beforehand. So there's positives to
Yes.
social media if
Yeah.
you're using them for that.
Yes, absolutely. But not that my kids have it.
Yeah. Well, plus my 17-year-old's been able to help me with social media. So if not, I don't know where we'd be at on some of my posts. So it's gotten it's gotten better as we continue to go on these next few months.
There you go.
What what do you feel like your next 5, 10 year plan is that you see the vision of your channel going off, and then just weather forecasting in general?
I think the big thing is going to be like what kind of impact does AI have on what we're doing moving forward? And then how do we either adapt or also too like how do we use AI to provide more weather information than what you would think two people in a garage would be able to do. And so we're trying to figure out that and figuring out also too like what happens with AI and advertising and where does that go and then how do we fit into that puzzle so we're not squeezed out if you will. So I think AI is kind of the big thing and how do we use it and then how do we also not get squashed by it as well. But as far as the channel, I mean, I think we'll just continue to grow. I think we're kind of beholden to bad weather, I think. And I don't ever wish for bad weather, but the reality is that people are, you know, they're going to carry on with their lives and do whatever they're going to do. And then all of a sudden, like the weather's bad. They're like, oh, we need to download this app or we need to follow this person. And that's just kind of the nature of the beast. And to a certain extent, that's our business model in that we're trying to like really focus on when the weather's more active. And so I think, we'll just continue to see growth through different events and then we'll hopefully have our place carved out in the panhandle for people to that, when the weather is of interest, that they'll come to us. They'll come to our app, they'll come to our YouTube page. We're on Roku now, and soon we'll be on Fire and Apple TV. So we just want to, I think apps are important because that's the closest thing to a channel
Yeah.
that we have, and I think people kind of look at that, only now it's instead of a TV channel it's going to be a weather channel. So we want to be like that local weather app that looks dark outside, what's going on, and you go to the Panhandle Weather app. So we'll see. There's also like concerns like with AI that I've heard different things that like apps are going to go away in the next 5 years and like you're just going to kind of type what you want and it's just going to happen. So I don't know.
I'm not sure if that's going to happen yet, but that's something to look forward to if it does, right?
Yeah, yeah. But I'm hoping I have like maybe 10 more years before I can retire. So if I can like put off this AI thing is and stay relevant for at least the next 10 years, then it's up to my business partner's half my age. He's 25. And he's like the most brilliant kid I work with, which I'm super blessed to have because like I've always been super techie. And the way I describe this is like you have to be like I'm probably in like the 95% of techiness, but like this, what we're doing right now is takes about 99%. And like
Yeah.
he's there.
Yeah.
And,
He's
and I
got
got
it.
I got kids and laundry and dishes and like a lot of other like parent things that I got to do too. And he doesn't have that yet. So I lean on him for that. He leans on me for other things. And it's been a good partnership and a lot of fun doing it with him as we kind of figure this out. Cause like he just wants to like be a part of something bigger and he has an ownership stake in it. So we get to do it together as opposed to just collecting a paycheck and not having any interest.
Yeah. Well, maybe he'll figure out how to get AI to come to your guys' website to pull all the data because that's how it
Yeah.
works and scrubs your data and then
Yes.
fields it out to everyone. So you'll still be relevant because you have the data source to feed AI.
Yes. Oh, he's got big plans for AI and what and stuff that we can do. So thank God for him. We just have to kind of see where all it's going and then trying to figure out what we can provide people in the most efficient way possible. But we're just looking forward to growing. It'd be nice to have some more employees to focus on different aspects of it, like from presentation of weather to just like social media stuff, so that way I can focus maybe on like bigger picture things and severe weather. And then we have other people that can focus on, social media and maybe day to day stuff. We'll see. It'll all depend on how successful we can be, but we're surviving right now, and we're having fun, and we'll get there. Rome wasn't built in a day. The growth has been super, super impressive, I think. And I'm just excited to see where it goes, because I never thought I would own my own business. I just thought I would just keep working. So that's part of it too.
That's exciting. You guys are already off to a great start.
Absolutely. Fingers
So what?
crossed.
One of the things I like to end the podcast on is relative to the Panhandle. This could be anything from weather challenges, tech challenges. What are some of the biggest issues that you see it's focusing in the Panhandle over the coming years?
Oh, man. I think a couple different things. One is like, a lot of it's like jobs. Like, what industry are we building on for the Panhandle? It's an awesome place to live. There's a high quality of life. So, how do we get the right businesses to have people that want to come here? Now, I think we saw with COVID, like people that had the opportunity took it. Now most of these people are like work other places, remote work type jobs. But like it'd be nice to have like real industry, like aerospace or whatever. I mean, we have like nothing but land. I refer to it like as Mutual of Omaha, especially as you get like north of 98. Like there's not a lot. We have plenty of space. And so housing is great and all, but like I think industry, and then having industries that like encourage people that are from here to like give them an opportunity to come back, because like otherwise, like you're kind of like just doing tourism, and there's nothing wrong with that. But like, if someone goes off and wants to be an engineer, now, I mean, granted, we do have the military bases, but as many opportunities in different industries that you have for us to grow, I think that's probably like the biggest thing, because I think like, well, we moved here because of quality of living. It's a good place to raise a family, and I was able to find a job, and we moved here in '09. And so my first house here was a short sale in South Walton that I got for like, nothing, but that's the only reason why I could have, like, I could never afford to live here, like
Yeah,
on a
yeah,
TV weatherman salary, and so, what jobs can you do that you could actually afford to live, I mean, it's true with anywhere along the coast, but especially like in South Walton in particular. I mean, it's not the real world. Like,
yeah,
you go up to Origins and it's, you're over $1 million and you're 2 miles from the beach. Like,
yeah.
who can afford $1 million house?
We're in our own little bubble here in this area. So,
Yeah.
and remote work is the key, and tourism is the key industries, but there's nothing else outside of that. We have a shipbuilding company in Panama City, which is good, but we need more industry and tech companies in the area.
And I mean, I think that's the main thing. And then the other thing would be like fewer golf carts on 30A, but that's just a personal thing.
Yeah, yeah, we have a lot of them. We got custom parking spots for those now.
Yes, we do. But as long as they watch Panhandle Weather, it's fine.
Right. Well, maybe we can get a sponsorship with one of the beach buggy golf carts, and it shows up on every one of their digital screens when they turn it on in the
Yes.
morning. That'd be great.
There we go. Now we're thinking.
All right. Well, hey, thanks again for taking time to be with us today. How can people follow you? The apps, social media sites, spread the word out to get more people on the app.
Yeah, all you have to do is, I mean, really just Google Panhandle Weather. We're at panhandleweather.com, Facebook Panhandle Weather, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all Panhandle Weather. And then also, too, we're on Roku, and soon to be, we'll have an app for Apple TV and Fire. That's the tough thing with like the television stuff. They're all separate. Like, so you're having to like, and not, Roku has like 40% market share, but everyone else is like small. So when you add it up, it ends up being a lot, but it makes it a pain to like get all of these apps made. But we'll get there eventually. But at the very least, if you have YouTube on your TV, you can watch us that way on your TV. And the great thing about it too is like when you open up the app, the channel just plays at the top of the screen. So you don't have to go hunt for it. The same thing that's on your TV is playing right now at the top of the app when you don't have to do anything to do it.
Nice. Excellent. So I'll definitely be looking at that now for weather compared to the other apps. Thanks again
Yes.
for joining today. And if you need anything in the future, always reach out.
Hey, Chuck, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. We'll see you around town.